Okay, I call the meeting to order. Sergeant Adams, please invite the witness to the witness table. Thank you. Morning, Ms. Low. Please take your seat. For the record, please state your name, occupation, positions you hold.
Hi. Oh, sorry. My name is Lo Pei-Ying. I'm 30 years old this year, and previously mentioned, I am the head and co-founder of Continentalist, a data visualization and editorial studio here in Singapore. And I'm also a cadre member of the Workers' Party, and prior to her resignation, secretarial assistant to Ms. Farisa Khan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming back again at short notice. I would like to remind you that you had made an affirmation yesterday to tell the truth, and the proceedings today is a continuation of yesterday's hearing, and you're still bound to your solemn obligations. Now I'd like to hand over to Ms. Edwin Tong for some further clarifications and questions.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. I'm very sorry to trouble you again.
It's okay.
But I thought I'd like to just ask you two broad questions.
Okay.
Actually, the first one is just a request. In relation to the documents that you have sent,
Right.
And I know you worked over lunch yesterday, so I appreciate that very much. Some of the documents, some of the trails of the messages would help us set the context, because some of them in isolation doesn't give us the full picture. So I would appreciate if you can work with staff to just work through. As I said yesterday, it is not our intention to look into your personal matters, but I would hope that you can give us a bit more context to the discussion that led to some of these messages, if they're preceding ones. And if I could just refer you to the transcript yesterday. Is Ms. Loh able to have a copy of the raw transcript that we have? I'll just read it to you for the moment, Ms. Loh. At one juncture, and I'd asked you for documents at several junctures. At one juncture at page 23, I said, I asked you for this WhatsApp chat group. Could you also produce it to the COP, at least in relation to the discussions of the 3rd August speech and any discussions you would have arising from this? And then further on, I said at line 22, your discussions on that and anything else they may have developed from that thereafter. So I'll be grateful if you could have that kind of formulation in mind when you look at a particular message or an email, so that the full chain and the full trail can be made available for contextual purposes.
Admittedly, I'm quite uncomfortable sharing this because, I mean, there were a lot of things and a lot of opinions that people throw around, and
Yeah.
and sometimes, in our own zealousness, we say really stupid things, and
I understand.
some of these are quite embarrassing, so I really don't want to share them.
Whilst I understand that, I think the difficulty we have is that we do have to look into all the factual matter. And whilst it is expression of an opinion or expression of a view, perhaps in a private chat, there's a certain contextual relevance to it in the context of events that have been happening contemporaneously, and that sheds light on them. And some of them also give us factual, allow us to answer some factual questions, such as when, what took place, and between who, which some of your messages already shed light on. So it is in that context I'm asking you to see it, and I hope you appreciate that. We are not trying to delve into personal matters, but it is relevant to the inquiry, and I would request that you do provide them. If you are uncomfortable, I would suggest that, subject to Chairman's views, we could have a staff from Parliament sit down with you, and you could explain if something is personal and not related to the inquiry. We can always remove it, because I do appreciate that sometimes these personal remarks are interspersed with what might be of relevance to this COP. So we can do that. But otherwise, any expression, any view formed on any of the matters that we've spoken about, particularly the key points that I've requested, I would like for those to be produced.
Perhaps we could agree on what those key points are first before I want to open my WhatsApp to the Parliament staff.
Okay, I can tell you from memory what those key points are, and perhaps it's best I give you a date reference because that's probably the best way in which you would be able to identify the documents and the trails. From memory, and I will check later on if I missed anything out. 3rd August, there was a speech. You said there was an animated discussion. 4th August, there was, I think, some other discussion. 7th August, there was some discussion and a Zoom chat. 8th August, there was, you don't have to take this down, I'll just get someone to give you the transcript. 8th August, there was a meeting between Mr. Pritam Singh, Ms. Lim, and Mr. Manap with Ms. Han, and there were some discussions thereafter. And I think your evidence was that there was nothing else between August and sometime in October.
Nothing else between 8th of August to 4th of October.
Yes, so I think I did say just check that that is the case.
Yeah, and I went to check, really don't have.
Then the next one is, I think, 3rd of October. I believe it was a Sunday. 4th October, which was the date of the speech. There were several dates in between where I think you said you could not remember, but the next date of relevance is 12th October, where there was a discussion at Mr. Singh's house. I think you put in a request to meet. There was then, you explained that there was some review and comments on drafting. And I know of at least one date on the 22nd of October where there was actually a meeting. I don't know whether there were others, so you said you would check, and whether there were drafts exchanged. That culminated, I think, in the speech made on the 1st of November. So any discussions arising from or related to the speech would be relevant, along with the announcements on that day itself made by Workers' Party. There was a statement by the Secretary General. On the 2nd of November, there was a statement by the Workers' Party media team on the setting up of the DP. On the 4th of November, it was a Deepavali, and you had a meeting with Ms. Han at her home, where she was producing evidence, and I think you discussed it with her. And thereafter, you weren't sure about the dates thereafter, so I said check. But the next date you gave us that was of relevance is 25th November, where you said you met with the Workers' Party team, the DP. And the other date that was significant was 29th November, when I think Ms. Han went before the DP again. And then 30th November when she resigned. And I think that was the end of it, because yesterday was the 2nd of December, which is when the press conference took place. Okay, so that's the time frame that we had evaluated and discussed when we discussed your evidence yesterday.
There are some things that are within this time frame that that obviously concern this issue, but they are quite confidential. And am I allowed to tell the Parliament staff that I don't want to share those? To my opinion, they are not relevant to the proceedings. They are just, chatter about what's gone on.
I can't really make a judgment on that until I know what it is. So it's difficult for me to say. All I can say is that the request would cover all things of relevance, and it relates to, I've tried to, as best as I can, articulate the periods.
Sometimes, for example, we would mention names of friends and other volunteers who have given or shared their opinions with us, and I would really, really like to keep their identities anonymous if I can, please.
What we could do, subject to, again, to Mr. Chairman's approval, is we could actually redact those.
We can do that.
Yeah, we can redact specific messages. I know you can't quite do it when you're trying to do it on the phone and taking a screenshot, and I'm not very technically inclined, but in hard copy form, you can actually physically redact it.
Can I redact it on my own phone before I pass it to the staff?
You can.
Yes, you can.
You can, but I will also suggest that for those that you redact, you might want to redact the offending portions or the sensitive portions, leaving the rest of the text available, because that allows someone to make an evaluation as to whether that is actually relevant or not. So could you do that?
Okay, I'll try my best.
Okay, I know it's an imposition on you, and
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things are, never did I foresaw that this would, it's a private conversation between myself and other people, and
I know.
I am a member of the Workers' Party, and I mean, no offense, lah. Sometimes I say,
It's
not the
okay.
best things. Yeah. So,
Trust me, Ms. Low, we've heard it all. So
okay.
I take no offense, and I think my colleagues don't either.
Yeah.
I know it's an imposition, and I will say to you that it is not our intention to delve into personal matters. I give you that assurance. But we do have a duty to ensure that all matters of relevance comes before the COP. So that's my challenge.
Will you be asking any of other people who are in this conversation the same?
It really depends on the extent to which they were aware, and it was in fact because of what you told us that we have called Mr. Nathan. From what you have said so far, I don't see anyone else being as closely associated with the events as yourself and Mr. Nathan. But I really don't know until I see the other materials.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
I think just to reiterate, I think why this is important, as you've realized, and I mean, as ongoing developing comments made on the issues, you realize that there are some discrepancies. And I think it's important for us to fully understand how things evolved, because ultimately the focus of this committee of privilege sharing is really about Ms. Khan, what she said, why she said, because ultimately we also need to determine her level of responsibility for what happened. And I think all the different conversations, perspectives about how things evolved, and the sense of it is important. And as mentioned, I think as we edit our WhatsApp and all that, I can imagine certain parts we just cut it out. But I think the other way to do it is to print it out and then you mark out those parts that you feel, this comment, that person, I think we can do that. But it at least allows us to still follow the general sense of the flow and more or less have a sense of what else was covered. That would really be useful, I think.
And can I have a guarantee that the conversations will be kept strictly to only the eyes of the people on this panel and not, on this committee and
Yes,
not
we can do
anyone
that.
else
We
beyond
can
this?
do that. Should there be a need to make anything public, I think this one we will clarify and make sure that we clear that with you. But otherwise, it is for the committee of privilege, the COP, to review that as evidence.
Ms. Low, the proceedings are confidential, as we had told you yesterday as well. The thing is that we are a body that has been set up by Parliament to make findings, and we have to report to Parliament. So to the extent that things are relevant to the issues that we face, we do have to report to Parliament, and to that extent, it goes to Parliament and becomes public. And I think that is unavoidable. That's our duty. But obviously, it is also for us to determine what's relevant and what's not relevant. And to the extent that there are private conversations, irrelevant on, banal things, I don't think that will form part of the record. And I'm quite happy for us to look at that and have that either redacted or expunged from the record altogether. But I think, as I said earlier, in order for us to make that judgment, we do have to be broader and then be narrowed down from there. So I hope you understand that. So it has to be produced first.
Yeah, I don't, honestly, I don't feel like I have much of a choice. It makes me really uncomfortable to do this. But I will try to, collaborate as best as I can.
Okay, I appreciate that very much. Now, the second area I wanted to get your confirmation was this. In one of the documents that you gave us yesterday, there is a WhatsApp message just on its own. I would like to correlate that to evidence that we heard from Ms. Han yesterday, so that it gives you the context. So you have a bundle of the notes of evidence before you. If I could trouble you to please turn to page 159, and you will see that at the top left-hand corner of the page. And to give you context, I'm asking Ms. Han questions, and I was focused on the period on the 7th of August. And just for context, you remember 7th of August when she had a conversation with Mr. Singh, and thereafter they set up a meeting with the three of the party leaders. So if you look at Ms. Han's statement at around line 15, 16, have a quick look. I made that reference, and she answered there was a short phone call, then there was a meeting. Okay, that's the context. Now, if you go over the page, I then asked her at line 10, on this occasion, Ms. Lim, Mr. Manap were also present. That's at Mr. Singh's house. She says, yes. Did you put it in clear terms to them as well that the statement you had made was false? Answer, yes. Could they have misunderstood? Answer, no, they could not. And I asked her what was their reaction to this. She says, it was incredible disappointment. There was a lot of anger, but I think there was some compassion there as well. The reaction there was that if I was not to be pressed, then the best thing to do would be to retain the narrative that I began in August. And I said, let me understand the last statement. You said if you're not going to be pressed, then you take the narrative that you started in August. Answer, yes. It means if we can get away with it, we don't need to clarify the lie, correct? I think in the simplest terms, yes, you are correct. I had a further exchange with her, and at line 19, I said, so the upshot of the meeting a few days after 7 August was that the Workers' Party leadership decided that there will be no need to clarify the position. They will keep the lie in place, since if you are not pressed, there's no need to clarify the truth, correct? Answer, correct. And then you go over the page. I asked her, and this is where it's relevant to you, line 5, did you discuss this with Ms. Low thereafter? Answer, yes, I did. In those discussions, did you give an account of what happened? Answer, yes, I did. Would that be by message? Yes, that would be by messages. And I noted that to be in a plural. And those messages would capture the thrust of what you had discussed with Mr. Singh, Mr. Manap, and Ms. Lim. Answer, yes. And then I asked her to make a note of it. And at line 19, I said, those messages would have been contemporaneous, meaning they would have been roughly around the same time as when you concluded the meeting with the three of them. Answer, yes. And she says, and I asked her what was Ms. Low's reaction. She says, I don't remember her reaction by message, but I think when we spoke about it afterwards, there was a sense that the best thing to do would be to tell the truth. So that's the context of the evidence that Ms. Han had given. Now I have a few questions for you. Mm-hmm. First, there was a conversation that Ms. Han had with you after she met with the three of them. Mm. Can you describe it for us, please?
And I want to think that I'm being completely honest here, because again, I cannot, there was a lot of like chatter.
Yes.
But to my knowledge, that message that I shared with you is the only one where she had explicitly stated the nature of the conversation, that, you know, with reference specifically only to this police accusation. Because, you know, unfortunately they said, take it to their grave, which when I went back to look at it, I was like, I mean, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'll come to that in a minute. What I was referring to is if you look at the bottom of line of page 162 to the top of 163, she's saying that besides the messages that she did speak to you afterwards. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, so I looked through the messages and following right after that message that I've sent to you, what Ms. Han proceeded to do was to just send us a draft of the statement that she was going to put out that day. And that statement referred specifically to matters concerning, for example, the FGM and polygamy. And my reaction to those was simply to just, you know, finesse that draft. I didn't, to my knowledge, I can't recall responding to their reaction, like to what the party leaders had said. Yeah.
Ms. Han seems to recall that there was a sense that the best thing to do would be to tell the truth in reference to your conversation with her. I mean, that, to my mind, was also consistent with what you told us yesterday.
As I said, there might be some degree of misremembering happening, but as I mentioned, and this is what I looked through the chats and I remember when she was pressed by Minister Shanmugam on the 4th of October, I told her, I think best you tell the CEC.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in fact, actually, in August, and this is the 8th of August,
yeah,
I think already made the point clear to her.
I must have said it at least on Zoom. I don't recall, because admittedly, we were very aware that this is a highly confidential and highly sensitive matter, and we explicitly avoided going about it in chat.
Okay. She also seems to at least recall that there were several messages, or at least a series of messages, besides just the one that you had sent to us. Do you recall if there are others which might shed light on this? I mean, for example, if the messages don't directly concern what was discussed at the meeting, but also her view of what the meeting said, your response, and what to do thereafter, that will also be relevant.
Yeah, I know that, but I mean, later the Parliament staff can verify what I'm saying. To my knowledge, from when she told them on the 8th of August to the 4th of October, we really didn't chatter about it anymore. Because to me, in my mind, she had told party leadership, and in my mind, I also thought like just put this behind us and move on.
Okay. On that day itself, the takeaway from that meeting
Of the 8th of
of
August.
the 8th of August, would I know you were not there, but as I said, there was an exchange of messages. She sent you a message. You must have looked at it and taken something away from it. Would what I've just read to you at page 160 through to 162 accurately summarize the gist of the takeaway from the meeting with the Workers' Party leadership?
I really cannot say if it's accurate or not, because all the knowledge that I have of that meeting was that one message.
Okay. Based on that one message, and maybe you can have a look at that one message. Is there a copy for Ms. Loh?
Thank you.
You go to the 8th of August. I think you recall this because you quoted from this earlier. 8th of August, it's time-stamped 12:41 p.m., which I presume that's the time it was received.
Yeah.
Or sent. It says, "Hey guys, I just met with Pritam, Sylvia, and Faisal, and we spoke about the Muslim issues and the police accusation. I told them what I told you guys, and they've agreed that the best thing to do is to take the information to the grave. They also suggested that I write a statement to send out this evening." What was your reaction when you received this? What was your takeaway from this message?
Admittedly, okay lor, that's what the party leaders decided.
Meaning, don't clarify the truth of the statement.
Yeah, as I said, I avoided commenting on it on text message. I believe this was also one of those heightened H2 phase 2 HA alert period, so we also didn't meet in person, and I genuinely did not deliberate on this any further until the 4th of October.
Understand, but I just wanted to understand your state of mind when you saw this message, because this was obviously sent to you. "Hey guys" refers to yourself and Mr. Nathan, right?
Yeah. I'll have to be very frank and admit that I really think that I trusted their...
You trusted the Workers' Party leadership judgment.
Yeah.
But what was your view from this? What does take the information to the grave mean?
Don't tell anyone.
Yesterday, when we went through what was discussed on the 3rd of October, and again, to give you the context, Ms. Loh, you told us yesterday that 3rd of October, there was a meeting between Mr. Singh and Ms. Han. Yes, at her home.
Yeah.
But you only heard about it subsequently when
Yeah.
Mr. Singh narrated it to you on
Correct.
the 12th of October, to yourself and Mr. Nathan.
Yeah.
And you also told us that Mr. Nathan could corroborate what you heard,
Yes.
right? Which we will put to him in a moment. One of the takeaways from that discussion that Mr. Singh conveyed to you was that he told Ms. Han on the 3rd of October that, I forget the words precisely, but it's something along the lines of, keep to the narrative and I won't judge you.
I don't know about the first half of that, but definitely the forwards, I will not judge you.
Okay, maybe to be more accurate, I should just show you what was said so that we are on the same page. If you could. And I'm giving you I'll first give you Ms. Han's account of this, okay? If you could pick up that bundle and turn to page 153. And I just would like you to start with line 16. So to give you the context, this is the page. This is the reference point. I had a conversation with leader of the opposition. Conversation was that if I were to retain the narrative, if I were to continue the narrative, there would be no judgment. when was this? 3rd October, in my house. Over the page, she gives an interpretation of that. Now, your account yesterday can be found at page 39. And if you look at line 7, you said this is information that I have that you shared with me after 4th October. So I believe you meant 12th October, which is after the event itself. I believe she met Mr. Pritam Singh the day before, which is the 3rd of October. And then you said at line 13, but definitely I know in the subsequent meeting that I had with Mr. Pritam Singh in person at his place, that he shared with me he had met her the day before. And he told her that he had a feeling that this might come up. And I don't know the full details of what he said to her, but he shared with me that he said, I will not judge you. So this would be in the context of, if you accept Ms. Han's narrative, what I showed you earlier, this would be in the context of the prevailing thinking that in August, the Workers' Party leadership had said not to disclose the information and to take it to the grave. That would be a fair assumption?
Yes.
Right, thank you. Okay, I've got no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for other members? Mr. Donvi, I believe you have a clarification to make.
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, Ms. Loh.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Yesterday, I informed you that the Workers' Party press conference had happened.
Yeah.
When we were speaking, or when we were hearing from you yesterday.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that during the press conference that the Workers' Party leadership was aware of the untruth a week after the 3rd of August Parliament sitting. Instead of 3rd of August, I mentioned 3rd of October.
Yeah.
So thus, I would like to take this opportunity here to clarify and stand corrected.
Thank you. I remembered that too. I was quite shocked when I
Yeah.
opened my phone to
Apologies.
see that that was not correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so note the clarification. Any other further questions for Ms. Loh from other members? Okay. If not, then so there are no other further questions. I think as discussed, if we can go through some of the
Yeah,
something
actually,
like
I would
that.
like to clarify one thing that I said yesterday, because after I looked at my conversations, I realized that maybe what I represented yesterday was not completely accurate. I think Mr. Tong asked me that what my primary advice to her was after the 3rd of August, prior to having known the truth. I had said that I recommended that she stick to a line of confidentiality as the reasoning for not giving further information to Parliament. And I believe that was not accurate. As you can see in the text messages, I had just kind of told her that, okay, yeah, mistake, like, kind of move on from it. I had said that I had recommended that to her because actually on that day itself, or rather the day after, I believe on the 4th of August, my husband and I had a very heated debate on this issue. Obviously, he was also upset that the police had been maligned, and I told him, it's the absolute right thing to maintain the line of confidentiality for the victim, and that's why I think it got stuck in my head. Yeah, so it was said to him, but not to her.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you very much, Ms. Loh.
So as discussed, if you are able to go through and if you are comfortable, perhaps if you discuss with my staff, someone senior to talk to you, and then perhaps help you in the review of your materials if you feel that there's a need to. Like I said, the reasons for doing so is to understand the backdrop, and I think you understand the gravity of the issues, which is why I think the circumstances, how things evolve, the dynamics of it is important for us to lay out. We are mindful of the sensitivity. So like I said, some of these things, if it makes it easier, print it out, then you can mark it out accordingly. And then that would be helpful for us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not comfortable with that. Like, if I can just choose on my own, I think that would be
fine.
best.
That is fine. Right, but I hope you understand the reasons why we are doing this.
Yeah, I fully understand. I have also, I don't know if I will be called again.
If there is, you will be submitting, I think, further other documents. I think you've been going through, there are still other materials that you might be sending to us? Emails or any other materials
No,
beyond the
no,
WhatsApp?
no, just the WhatsApp stuff. I mean, I had obviously a long think about what's been happening yesterday. And I just wanted to give, to some extent, a bit of a personal statement, if I'm allowed.
Yes, you may.
Yeah. Just in case, I guess, anyone thinks that I'm coming in with an agenda of sorts, I just want to clarify that I've been, a member of the Workers' Party for 10 years, and I've give the cause a reasonable amount of my personal time and my youth. And I'm very aware of the ramifications of what I've shared, including these WhatsApp conversations. And
Yeah, please carry on.
yeah, it pains me greatly, but to me, beyond anything else, it's important to be truthful to my country. Yeah.
Ms. Loh, thank you very much. I want to assure you that we are also here on a fact-finding mission. There is no agenda upfront by us, and we're not preconceived on any views. It is our job to be impartial and neutral. And we appreciate the candor, and that's all that we expect, and we appreciate of our witnesses. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm genuinely very afraid of what will happen after.
Yes, Ms. Loh,
Understand.
thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
So if there are no further questions for now, we would like to thank you for coming before the committee. A transcript of the proceedings will be shared with you for further verification. Please go through it, and if any other minor amendments, please make the changes and send the transcripts back to us. As mentioned yesterday, do note that the transcripts and any evidence given to the committee are not to be disclosed to anyone or published and must be kept strictly confidential until the committee has presented its report to Parliament. You may withdraw now, but as mentioned, I think you can work on the relevant documents, etc., and to black out any of the materials or portions of it that you may not be comfortable with. If you need to, you can talk to all of our staff if it helps to assist that process, and our staff will be accompanying you out to the waiting room. Thank you very much. Sergeant at Arms, please accompany our witness. Once again, thank you very much, Ms. Loh.
Thank you.